Welcome everyone. This is Rafiq Ahmed at Dipalo Ventures. Welcome Kevin, welcome Haley, Paul, and we have Munir from our team handling the background stuff. Munir, you might need to just not be on mute in case you need to tell us anything. And then Larry Hayward from Dipalo is going to jump on as well. Larry usually runs a minute or two late, so I'll take a little dig at him before we get going. But listen, you guys look like you're having the most fun because you're out under a tree with some plants behind you. So I guess jump in, say hello. We'll go around, do some intros, and then talk about MITO Materials and this amazing round.
Legendary round. Yeah. Hey, I'm Haley Keith with MITO Material Solutions.
I'm Kevin Keith, co-founder, husband, head of product.
Yeah.
I like the husband in the middle there.
You have to. Business partner and life partner.
Lest we forget. Okay.
Yeah, we are currently outside in our backyard looking all nice because our daughter's sleeping. And if we were talking in the living room, she would not be sleeping. So
your daughter sleeps a lot. I mean, of like that age group, your daughter is very cooperative with the startup journey, I would say.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. Her title, when she was born, we titled her Chief Cuteness Officer. And as she's growing, we're giving her more and more responsibilities. And a lot of that requires napping when we need her to nap.
Yeah. Hopefully there are no milk additives being added to this picture.
Hopefully she's more punctual than Larry is.
Oh my God. Hey, Munir, you might need to ping Larry separately. But hey, Paul, introduce yourself.
Yeah, Paul Seidler. I'm managing director at Clean Energy Trust and proud new investor in MITO Materials. And it's great to be having another meeting call with Haley, Kevin, and Rafiq while we kick it off by making small talk while waiting for Larry to join. Another one. Why not? Let's do it again.
Yeah.
Let's jump into it. Actually, why don't you introduce Clean Energy first, and then
sure.
Continue. Yeah.
So Clean Energy Trust is a seed stage venture fund based in Chicago. We're focused on clean tech, climate tech startups in the broader Midwest/mid-continent region of the United States. We have a rather unique investment model in that we are structured as a nonprofit. So what is a nonprofit venture fund? It is something that we refer to as a 501 VC. That is the term that we use to describe our investment model. We are very intentionally structured as a nonprofit because it gives us access to capital that is can be a little more risk tolerant than the market, because we see a gap in the market of not a lot of early stage money for early stage clean tech startups, especially those that are developing hardware technologies or advanced materials. We will invest in software as well, but really what we're trying to do is give some really promising technologies some runway to de-risk those technologies and get to the point that larger institutional investors are ready to come on board, help them grow. So we've invested in 34 startups over the last 7 years or so. Our investments dollar-wise usually between $100,000 and $300,000. And really we're looking for impact, and we're looking for companies that can rapidly grow and scale just like any venture-backed business. We're super excited about MITO Materials and what Haley and Kevin are working on, and I can share more throughout the conversation, but I'll pause there.
Awesome. So let me just jump in. Of course, I'm trying to text Larry in the background. Rafiq Ahmed at Dipalo Ventures. So what is it that we do? We're going to focus on two areas: hard tech, companies like MITO Materials, but also connected hardware. We're generally a group of people that come from both worlds in terms of product experience and expertise. I came out of the design team at Motorola before it was Google, and my other partner, MITO Patel, is from that world as well. And so we have the ability to really look under the hood on technology. And the way we want to do venture differently is to sort of lead with that and look at products and help companies, help founders through that product life cycle, while, you know, at the same time making investment bets. So our launch happened this year. It was a soft launch. We're continuing to raise, and we've made 6 initial investments at the beginning, well, through the course of this year. And this is our first founder stories, and we love, you know, MITO Materials, and I just thought it would be a great story to tell. So we're going to try to dig a little bit deeper into both the company and what, you know, what it does, as well as the fundraising journey. So there's always people wondering, you know, can we raise money during the pandemic? We're sort of deep into it now, right? So the answer is yes. And so I think Haley and Kevin's journey is really reflective of that. And it's really, it's interesting for us. It's the first one that we led, or at least co-led with Paul at Clean Energy. So it's been a good learning experience for us as well. So I think as much as we can share would be helpful to the audience, whether they're live today or not. And finally, one other point to the audience, yeah, there's a chat box. So please put in any questions you have. We'll get to them as we can. So over to Haley and Kevin.
Yeah, so I'll just give you a little bit of background. Before we met Dipalo and Clean Energy Trust, Rafik and Paul and Larry, we had participated. I mean, so brief. Explain what MITO and a polymer additive is.
Yeah, what the heck is a polymer additive, right?
Yes.
Yeah, what the heck is that?
So a polymer is just a plastic, right? So think of the plastic parts that are in your car, sporting equipment, or what we call a thermoset. So like anything carbon fiber, fiberglass, boats, racing yachts, those cool carbon fiber crossweave panels that you see on more high performance vehicles, those are polymers. And so what we make are extra ingredients to go into these systems to make them more durable, lighter, fatigue life increase, you name it. We go in at such a low concentration that 2 pounds of our stuff can make either 3,000 carbon fiber bike frames or enough plastic parts to outfit 5 Ford F-150s. We're different than everything else on the market because we reactively disperse against ourselves. We can go into any manufacturing process without disrupting the current manufacturing line. No capex cost for the manufacturer. We work with their plastic supplier to be able to get into their line so they can just automatically order a MITO powered plastic.
You're also safer to handle, right? I mean, compared to some of the existing technologies. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So our products, so other additives, other plastic additives on the market, they're considered nanomaterials. So it's a picture of millimeter point 0.0000001 meters. Add another 9 zeros to that, and that's a nanometer. Ours is micron size, which standard personal protection equipment can handle. So it's a lot bigger, and it's dry powder form. But whenever we go into the plastic system, it breaks apart to that nanometer size. So that's how we're able to get these large increases at such a low concentration.
Yeah, I remember on a particular potential investor call that we were on, they were amazed that, hey, you know, we don't need to have all of the gear and the hazmat stuff that our teams have to normally wear. So let's maybe take it back. And by the way, guys, not to dig at Larry, but there was an emergency that came on. We were on an investor call, and then he had to jump off. So I'm sure he'll join in progress. But take us way back then to the roots.
Rafik, he's here. Larry joined us.
Okay. Hey, where are you at? There he is.
My head on mute, but I've been here.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, should we let Larry do a quick intro?
Quick intro, Larry. We've already done it.
Sure. Yeah. My name's Larry Hayward. I'm a partner in a venture fund called Independence Equity and a venture advisor to Dipalo Ventures. My investing interest and focus is in hard tech. So companies that have engineering or science based innovations that are backed by substantial intellectual property.
Cool. So that's Larry from our side of the house. So Haley, take us back to the beginnings of MITO. Like where did you start? And you've got this Oklahoma to Indiana story as well. That's interesting.
Yeah. So Kevin and I were engaged, and he was working on his engineering degree at Oklahoma State University. I'm a business person, not an engineer. And I was like, well, while you're waiting and I'm waiting for you to go get that degree, why don't I just jump on and go get my MBA? And my first class at Oklahoma State University was a class where I was working with STEM professionals at OSU and a bunch of MBA students. And we were looking at technologies that had been developed, but were just sitting on the shelf. And this MITO, what I call MITO, stuck out to me because it could increase interlaminar properties in composite materials, which not many people would know about, except I grew up in the RV industry where my mom was a head of customer service at several manufacturers. And I grew up listening to warranty problems related to the exterior parts of the unit. So I knew that it was an issue. And I came home and I had no engineers on my team, and I told Kevin all about the material. And he was like, if that really works, like if it really improves at 100%, that's gold. And so with that, I was like, well, I love gold. Let's figure this out. So I started digging into the business development cases, and Kevin helped me on the engineering side. And quickly, we just became this dynamic co-founding team where he was the engineering part of it. And if it was a great technology, we were going to make it work. And then I needed to solve the business problems, which was, hazmat, like it needs to be safe to handle. It needs to be easy to integrate. It needs to not add CapEx to the customer's line. And so together it started in 2016. By 2018, we had licensed the technology from the university, gotten a grant from the National Science Foundation, SBIR, to scale the material, and had brought on a co-founder who was a PhD in chemistry wizard. And he really took hold of the product. And Kevin and I started figuring out how it was going to go into the market. Fast forward to 2019, when we were accepted into the Heritage Group Techstars Accelerator, which really fast-tracked a lot of our growth with the materials. We had just gotten about $1 million in grants to do additional product development research on not only our functional product ego, but additional products in the series. And that accelerator really helped us figure out scaling operations and diving into customers. And so right now, our first piloting customer is actually a semi-truck trailer manufacturer who is now able to transition away from steel sandwich composites to fiber reinforced composite systems using MITO and shed 40 to 50% of the weight of the trailer. So it's all kind of coming full circle. And that's what brought us to Indiana from Oklahoma. We still have a team in Oklahoma. And then at the end of Techstars, Demo Day is actually where I met Rafiq. So it's kind of
we're gonna get into that momentous memorable day a little bit more. But I wanna go back to the accelerator. Lots of founders have to make this decision of what accelerator to go into, right? And of course, they're the better ones, and there are many others that maybe are not as useful. How did you find Heritage Techstars? If I'm a chemical company in Oklahoma, I mean, how does that pop up on the radar? I know you've done plug and play since. So can you give some advice on just your own learnings from that whole process?
Yeah, I think we were the first Oklahoma company to go to a Techstars. There's been one since, which are friends of ours. But I think Techstars, that accelerator program, is truly life-changing and company-changing. I mean, the network that you get with the founders at Techstars and the expansive and exhaustive list of corporates who know the brand, who know the accelerator, who know the quality of entrepreneurs and the companies that come out of Techstars is something that when you become a part of it, it can never be taken for granted. It was really an amazing experience. And Heritage Group, we were their flagship cohort at the Heritage Group Accelerator. And working with the Heritage Group, I mean, really kind of helped us establish how we wanted our company culture to be. They were an amazing family of problem solvers who was always right there willing to help, adding value every step of the way, had amazing experts to work with. And they really solidified our move to Indianapolis.
Yeah, their knowledge base and I guess their moral background, if you will, was really exemplary. So not only were they helping us do more robust qualification of our raw materials, so figuring out dry particle size, doing atomic force microscopy to see how it's interacting with the fibers, but also helping guide us within this sustainability aspect that Heritage Group is all about. So, for instance, Heritage Group, whenever the Horizon oil spill happened in the Gulf of Mexico, they actually went out there, collected all the oil, and then they took that oil and they sold it to essentially Chevy, and they put it in all the plastic parts within the Chevy Spark.
Well, this will make Ginger's heart warm. So for those of you in the audience, Ginger Rothrock is Heritage Group's on the VC side, and she is also an investor. So Heritage co-invested in this MITO round. It's usually a little bit earlier than they normally do, and it goes towards the sort of the interest in this deal. But so you're at a Heritage, and then I got the invite. I don't know, Paul, if were you there too, and we didn't meet that day? Were you in Indy during demo day?
I was not at that one. No.
Okay, so it was my first. I mean, I mentor at several different Techstars around the region, but got an invite from Aaron Gillum, who runs the Indiana State and at 50 South. They help manage the Illinois State Innovation Fund and the Indiana State Innovation Fund. So I got invited by Aaron, and moreover got invited to sit with the cool kids in the back of the room. And then later I ran into Haley's mom. So this is the part where, is she in the audience? Is Haley's mom here too?
Yeah.
Oh, hello, Haley's mom. She can go unnamed if that's the preference, but no, it was lovely. And then you guys were the most impressive. I mean, there were several really good companies. We talked to at least 2 or 3 more in some detail, but you guys were really interesting for what you were doing. And yeah, so we started talking, and I got Larry involved. That was what, December?
Yeah.
2019.
December 4th, 2019, demo day. We were the first to pitch. It was a really exciting experience. I nailed the 5-minute memory speech. I was really proud of it. And my mom was out at the food table, and we were getting inundated with a bunch of people. It was really fun. And she brings Rafiq over, and his first line is, "Hey, I met your mom." And I was like, okay,
Cool,
yeah,
cool,
that's
cool,
amazing.
yeah.
She's pretty cool. We have a picture of us all together, and actually I think some people thought that she was a part of our team, which she is on the background. She actually took care of our daughter a large majority of the time while we participated in Techstars, making that program even more valuable because we were able to focus on it. So
we put that picture in a newsletter, I think.
yeah.
But how was the whole, you're going into demo day, and are you doing a lot of meetings before or after? So for startups who haven't maybe taken that journey, what's your advice in navigating that?
Yeah, so I think we're in a plug and play accelerator now. I think comparing the two, there's a lot more, I think, on the line as far as meetings go. When you're in Techstars, there's a demand to be a better founder, a better CEO all the way through the program. And I was lucky to have 2 members of my team with me throughout the whole process. Kevin was here, but also Caillou. And going through that experience, the last month is all about focusing on demo day, hitting milestones, talking about KPIs, and then preparing to fundraise. We knew we were going to raise funding after our demo day, and that was the goal that I had in mind. And so everything between September and December was working towards telling the story for that, to achieve that goal. So we started in September with a bunch of mentor madness, and we met investors and innovators from all over our space, and figured out new market opportunities that we could go into, thermoplastics being a great example. And then October was build, figure out how you could make something really telling in that month, so that you can tell that story on demo day and use that to propel it forward. And I think we took that experience, those month frameworks, and we extended that beyond Techstars. And I think after December, we came out ready to fundraise and felt we were over asking a little bit. We had a $2.5 million idea for fundraising, and then we scaled it back and took December and January to do the same thing, mentor madness. And then February, March, even in the middle of the pandemic, build to get a term sheet with you guys by May. So I think we really use that framework a lot to shape our company, and we're continuing to do that. I think every quarter.
Yeah.
It's like, what can we learn? What can we build? What can we say?
Yeah, those sort of accelerator programs, especially like Techstars, we participated in a venture well program. So like it's for very, very young companies, pre-investment. It's a bunch of workshop classes to teach you how to handle a business and build a hard tech business like this. We went to Techstars thinking it was going to be the same thing, but essentially they said, all right, here's your toolbox, figure out how to use them all. And they'd help us along the way, and they'd connect us and make sure we have the right people to propel us forward. But it was all up to us how we were going to do this. So with that in mind, we went, okay, this looks good, this looks good. I don't know if we necessarily need that, but we were able to implement those sort of procedures and tools into our company as we were propelling forward.
Yeah.
Because of that, I mean, our customer base grew, last we checked, 500% or something like that over Techstars. So it was a crazy, crazy amount of growth.
It's a good toolkit that you can choose what you want from. What you want to keep from. So I want to bring, did we lose Paul? Because I was just going to reach
Paul
over to
comes, sometimes he gets lost in video calls, like he drops in and then he'll come right back. So if Munir brings him back in, he should be right back.
That's great that you have this insight on your investors.
This does happen to Paul.
But listen, let's bring Larry in. How important are first impressions? And you know, of course they're important, but Larry, what's your perspective? I had a really great positive first impression of Haley and Kevin and the company. What was yours? And we can also play it the other way, you know, investor first impressions.
High energy, won't let barriers get in their way. And there are a lot of barriers for any startup, but particularly in the materials space, because generally you're selling into large conservative entities and working your way through R&D departments. It can be a very frustrating experience, having worked with a lot of entrepreneurs who've done it. And so it requires a very special type of person or persons that can continue to pound away in spite of those barriers. And I saw that with Haley and Kevin, and that was my first impression.
Yeah, we were actually meeting them. You met them first over at where was it in Chicago? At one of your clubs, Economic Club, Union Club, I forget.
Oh yeah, you're putting all the bad brands up there. No, the University Club of Chicago.
College club or something.
They're all good. They're all good. We're just a little competitive sometimes.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was in. I should have had some notes on a chronological timeline, but I want to say it was pre-pandemic, February.
Yeah. Yes, February. We just got done meeting with Paul's group actually at Clean Energy.
Yeah, that was your first meeting with Paul, maybe. Hey, Paul, what are your thoughts on impression and your first impression here, and how important is it in sort of even your investment thesis?
Sorry, they're dropped off. Internet is competing with first grade and third grade currently.
Yeah.
So it gets a little spotty. Well, so it's interesting. Our first impression was just a pitch deck, because the way we run our process is that it's just an open application process. We don't take like the warm intros kind of thing. I mean, we take warm intros, but we just direct them to our application process. So we try to be super objective on the front end, and first impression of the pitch deck was kind of because a lot of people were like, what's a polymer additive, you know? But you know, we didn't throw it away. We dug deeper. We started to get a little more interested in the technology, and then we did first we did a webinar pitch before we brought them into the office. And I remember distinctly the webinar pitch was like, Haley was going 1,000,000 miles an hour, and she's like, sorry, I talk really fast. And I'm like, yeah, you do. Slow down, hold on. Let's talk about that thing one more time. Can you explain this? But like, the energy was really, it was great. And when you have something that's like this deep tech lab material, like it could be a little dry, so to speak. And like when you get someone bringing a lot of passion and energy to that sort of technology, it gets more exciting. It becomes more real. And so we kind of took it from there. And then once we brought them into the office, we really started to get on board with what they were doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think the energy level is important. I mean, sometimes founders will, I was just, last week was crazy. Deal flow is blowing up again. It's the fall. People are moving to virtual conferences, and by now, obviously, right? And there's so many more things happening in August, September, October. But I think you can always have a pitch deck that's maybe not as great. I was meeting somebody last week that I asked for the pitch deck to be able to like walk through it, but they insisted on not showing the pitch deck, but talking to it. So sometimes you just got to hear what people are saying. If somebody says, I'd really like you to show me your pitch deck, that immediately creates an impression like, can I work with this founder? Are they gonna, if they, and something simple like a pitch deck, show me, can I work with them? Are they going to be coachable and mentorable? But on the other side of the coin, what did you look for in investors? Or were you like, oh, just show me the money, we don't care?
No. After Techstars, we've
medium
learned a lot about valuable partners and partners you could work with. So I think in the same way that you guys are like kind of first impressioning us, we were doing the same with you in thinking about like, can I learn from this person? Is this person somebody who understands kind of the more differentiated struggles we have, especially in materials, which is why we fought so hard for Larry.
Yes.
I remember I was like nervous being so pushy, but I was pushy about getting Larry and Rafiq on because I just felt that there was such a value there. And Paul, never forget when we did this, it was like a 4-hour morning with you guys. We did everything, pitch deck, whiteboarding walls, and then he asked everybody in his organization to leave the room, and it's just Kevin and me. And he just comes to me like straight up, you're married. What's, where are we going with that?
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you for calling out the elephant in the room. That immediately made me say, like, what I love about our lead investors in this group is they add value, they're vulnerable, they're authentic, and they're not afraid to tell me the truth. Yes. And that was what we wanted.
That's actually not as big of an elephant in the room. But yeah, Paul, your thoughts on that question?
Well, I mean, it can be a red flag for investors. Obviously, it complicates things. Entrepreneurship is really hard. Marriage is really hard. You mix all that together, it can be, it can become a difficult recipe. And I just want to kind of feel things out, but I also wanted to be respectful of them and not necessarily do it in front of our whole team and our interns and everyone. So, we had a nice conversation about it, and it was something I wanted to get comfortable with. And, while it can be a red flag or maybe not a great recipe for success, you never know when a pandemic could hit, and quarantining, all of a sudden it becomes an asset because they're living together and it's not really slowing them down. So the world works in mysterious ways sometimes.
That's very true.
Our lawyer brought it up. They're married. So that's part of the diligence process. No, it can be an issue sometimes, but we worry about some of those things a little bit later. But so far it's been great. So then you guys met with us. You met with Clean Energy. How was the round coming up? So you started at 2.5. Walk us through some of those gyrations and changes.
Yeah, there was a lot. So we started with 2.5 in December. Felt like it was a little bit like there was when you come out as an entrepreneur raising money, there's a bit of a supply demand, and you really have to have what the investors want to create the demand for the number, even though you have a financial model that also tells you a number. So there's a lot of balance work that goes there. So we started with 2.5, and then we said, maybe that's not it. Let me go back. And I went back and I saw that we have the NSF SBIR phase 2. There's $500,000 matching, 2-to-1 matching if you can get investors to come in. And that was impressive. That was important to me to like realize and sit there and say, I can get this extra money and get to the number I need and drive the successful company. So I spent a lot of time going back, reworking the numbers, reworking the model, and reworking our growth plan. And, you know, good thing I did, because then by the time I like kind of came out with, hey, I think we're gonna raise $1 million, then the pandemic hit. And then I was like, well, okay, we're gonna go back to the numbers, and I just did this again. So, hey, we're gonna raise 500, and it can be a convertible note. Like, we really needed to raise money. We were not in the position where we could make it much longer. Without grant, with the grant funding, we were fine, but we needed money to support other opportunities, like the business development of the company. And so I had to kind of reestablish and paint that picture. And so then we really focused on raising 500 to get the matching 500 that would get us to $1 million. And that's what we came to you guys with in February. Well, I guess by March, when we really started talking numbers, we kind of came back and said, we need 500,000. If we get 500,000, we can get this match from phase 2B. This is important. It gets us where we need to be. And I've scaled back, like we can make it all work. And that's where we ended up in May when we wrote the term sheet. Was 500 was the goal. And if we could push it, and if we could get to $1 million, because by that time the pandemic had kind of like hit and we were moving forward, we were trying to figure out what the market was going to look like. If we could get to $1 million, that would be the ultimate goal. And then we did that, but that took a long time.
I'm curious, I know we're going to get into the deal term as well, but how important is the sort of these grants, and how easy are grants to get? And people talk about non-dilutive funding all the time. Can you break that down from your perspective a little bit?
Yeah, so I would love this question to be flipped on you guys too right after I answer it. But for me as an entrepreneur, non-dilutive grants are extremely important. They're not easy to get, but they're making it easier if you talk to founders who have done it before. So we've done NSF SBIR grants. We have grants with the state of Oklahoma that match the SBIR federal money. And you apply for these. It's a process, it's an application, but it's a challenge in a way. You're writing a business plan for your product. Like, how are you going to develop your product, research your product, and get it into a commercial viable option? That is so important for your tech team to do and be a part of. The non-dilutive money funds your tech team. And so as a CEO, for me, it's so helpful to have that safety net of knowing my tech team is safe. They're working on materials that are going to be commercializable, that MITO is going to use to propel our growth forward. On the other hand, non-dilutive capital or dilutive capital is also equally important, because there's restrictions on non-dilutive capital. So as a CEO, it's my challenge to understand what those limitations are on non-dilutive and how to best use them for our company and our growth on our tech side. And then use the investor capital to do all the things investors want to see: grow the business, bring on more customers, create a really great communication strategy for materials when polymer additives really aren't something you want to talk about normally. And so telling that story and matching non-dilutive capital with dilutive capital became a really big, what I thought was, selling point of our round, because we had $1 million in non-dilutive capital awarded in 2019. By raising this money, we were gonna get an extra $500,000 and some additional supplemental funding that really propelled both segments of our company forward to get us to what I think will be the next round in the Series A.
So it's really interesting, because you really want a gun for that non-dilutive capital, but you cannot guarantee it. You essentially have one shot to get this from our phase 2, $750,000. You write this 20-30 page business plan essentially for your tech, you send it out, and then you wait for the council to come back to say yay or nay. While with
How long does that process take? How long are you waiting?
6 months.
Yeah.
6 months. So we submitted in March and we didn't get the award until July.
Yeah. So flipping that over to Larry and Paul, what do you guys think of when you see non-dilutive? If you don't see it, is that a red flag? Like, why aren't you guys good enough to get grant funding? Like, what's it like from the investor standpoint? And
Larry, you want to kick that off?
Sure. It's great to see it. I think there's clearly some positives, obviously, if the company can fund itself by means that doesn't require issuing more shares. right? At some point, it's price per share. And so the more capital that is available that isn't diluting the investor base, the better. There are some downsides, and Haley hinted at them, which is, grants come with a certain set of requirements and duties, if you will, and the money can only be spent in certain ways and working on certain projects. And if the projects are well aligned with the company's commercial path, then it's great. If the projects lead the company astray from their their main commercial efforts, it can be a distraction. And so what you sometimes see are early stage companies that have founders that may have come from the academic community, as an example, who are prolific grant writers. And these companies sometimes get distracted in chasing all these grant opportunities rather than focusing on a few commercial paths that allow them to propel the company forward. And so it's a balancing act, but I'd say on the whole, if there is alignment, we love to see it.
Yeah, I'll echo your comment on also be wary of non-dilutive grant funding, where you have founders chasing every grant opportunity, whether or not it's aligned with the strategic plan. They become dependent on it, and it really, I've seen startups, I've experienced it firsthand, become what's known as an SBIR shop. And it's just kind of cycling through all the SBIR callouts and never really making progress with the business, but keeping the business afloat by doing grant funded R&D continuously.
Yep.
On the positive, yeah, pretty much every company in our portfolio that is based on patented hardware technology has had some grant funding and continues to pursue grant funding. And when done properly, it's all about capital efficiency. You really can't model this kind of a startup the way you would model the life cycle of a like say a consumer software startup that's going after active users, a 10% weekly growth rate, and just throw fuel on the fire. Don't worry about profit margins. Like, this is really about commercializing technology, developing a product, finding industrial partners, and it takes time. And so the only way for it to make these investments pencil out is to be capital efficient and supplement the private capital with non-dilutive grant funding. And if done properly, that formula can be very successful. Another thing from an investor's perspective is that really it helps me do some initial diligence on the technology, not the business, but the technology. So like if a startup has received, say, a phase 2 from NSF, that's a pretty good proxy that the technology is legit. It's not like black magic, so to speak. So, that's, I think, another thing that's helpful for us to see when we're doing our diligence.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's obviously a third stool in this, which is venture debt, but that's something that you would, maybe look at after some revenue start kicking in. I got a question here from Matt Sensky on the Q&A chat. And so there's a few in there that we'll probably address. So going from a $2.5 million to $1 million raise, how much did your runway or business planning change?
I would say the business model, the business planning changed a little bit. I think coming out of a Techstars accelerator, they push you to grow. And Techstars is originally a software accelerator. So there was a lot of hype around how you could throw some fuel on the fire, throw some investor dollars at it and make it grow. And then I think we had a moment of like, aha, where it was like, kind of more what Paul said. No, it's all about capital efficiency. There's going to be some time where we're going to need to take we can't shorten the development process of materials. It's going to take time. We need to have money to support that time, but we need to do it in a way that is efficient and wise and strategic. And so I think actually coming from the 2.5 down to the $1 million, it just made me think more strategically. And I think we're going to be able to accomplish most, if not all, of the goals that we would have had at the 2.5 with the 1 in, I think, a shorter time frame too. So I think it was actually a better exercise for me to kind of come off of my Techstars like big head, oh my gosh, it's amazing, we can do it, to come and be like, let's be more efficient. Let's really work with what we have.
Mhm.
And let's not forget that there is non-dilutive capital that can subsidize that other $1.5 million. I've done it. We've seen it. Let's make it grow that way. So I think, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully it does. Yeah. If not, you can write on a follow-up question.
Yeah, email me.
We have, so interesting from our perspective, going back to the round. So we were raising this fund. We were looking at our first close, and then the US went into shutdown, right? Well, it was, the warning signs were there, and then we finally did do the lockdown. And so our first close date and the lockdown was March 16th, same day. And I had many thoughts, which I was transparent with you, Haley, at least, that we're not sure. I mean, are we going to have funds to come into this? So it needs to, we need to see how it plays out. It's quite different from Paul's situation, established fund, ready to go. But we also got involved with Ting at Elevate Ventures, and there was some due diligence that they had done, and then I think Tony on Paul's team had done some diligence, and then we had some great Kellogg interns. Akanksha had started, and I think Sanchit or Raj had picked up on that. So there was a bunch of diligence in the process from investors. I mean, at the end of the day, we did the term sheet, I believe in May, and it made sense. We were looking at who to, can we partner? Should Elevate come in? And then, we had some conversations internally. We decided that Clean Energy and Dipalo would lead. And with the added bonus of Larry being our nominee to the board. So talk through that whole process. Did it take longer than you thought it would? What was your expectation, and how did it all pan out before it got closed?
I'm a first-time founder, so this is all very new for me. And I was glad that I was working with people that were honest and that I could trust, that it were like you were telling me exactly kind of what the process was, what was going on. I had friends that had closed rounds quicker, but I think I appreciated the length of time because it was a learning curve for me. I think my next round will close faster, but I think we were doing the best we could with like all of the things that were happening. And it really was like pulling everyone together. We had entertained and talked with you guys in February. We had done around the same thing with Elevate. So you guys all kind of came in and started doing diligence at the same time. And so it made sense for you guys to continue talking and working together. We were able to pull on other connections through HG, and then through my connection with Rich Dimer at CAV. And then Vision Tech kind of came in, and we were just kind of keeping the ball rolling. I think what was really important during that time, I would say in the middle, like while you guys were doing all the back end stuff, talking and doing the diligence behind the scenes, MITO didn't stop. Like we made sure that we were not letting a pandemic shut us down. And to Paul's point, thank God we all lived together, because it was a lot easier to do that. We scaled our manufacturing capabilities at Monument Chemical. We filed a patent. We onboarded additional customers and continued making sales. We moved forward with the piloting customer. We made sure that there was more to keep you guys interested. And I think that was helpful. And that was what we were focused on really during that time.
Yeah. So anyway, you've announced, and the deal ended up being about $1 million. And I think the last investor in may actually be on our attendee list today, Nathaniel over at Cortado from Oklahoma. So welcome if you are here, Nathaniel. What's next? What's the path forward, and what was the progress? You didn't stop. I just saw your first quarter. We're going to have the board meeting on Friday. And you've made some good progress. That's pretty amazing. What can you share, both in what's next, and then what are the bigger challenges now that you come out of fundraising and back to execution mode?
I'll take the tech side.
And actually, that was a Tracy Poole question too. Like,
Yeah.
what's the
Tracy Poole is actually who's our first lead investor in our pre-seed round. So
yes.
Hi Tracy. Thank you so much for believing us so early on. there were a lot of major challenges we overcame in the beginning, and I was glad to have those happen. I think like first year, get them in, get them out, and move on really fast, because now we can't stop running, and this is a great opportunity to continue doing so. And I think the move and having a hybrid location, one in Stillwater, one in Indianapolis, has helped us kind of continue that growth and overcome those challenges. So what we can share. Well, we did scale our product successfully. That was exciting. There's some optimization that needs to be done, and it's all doable. The customer pipeline, as Kevin has mentioned, it has grown like 500% since going into Techstars. The plug and play accelerator has been really helpful getting some major corporate introductions. And what I can say is every customer that we're talking to right now is really excited about evaluating the material. We have something, and we know we have something, and it's now time to kind of get it out into the market and prove it out. And so there's some exciting things happening in transportation for us, where there's going to be some use cases, hopefully that we can report on as case studies to show how big of an impact MITO is really going to make in the market and along the value chain. So I think one of the things that we're going to work on, one of the biggest challenges we're looking at overcoming in the next little bit, is a value-based pricing model and really understanding the incremental value chain adds that MITO's improving. There's obviously increases to mechanical performance, durability, lighter weight, but there's efficiencies that we're seeing with our customers, and reduction in material cost and increasing recyclability and sustainability initiatives that are really important to a lot of companies out there, which is, I think, really exciting to hear about in the middle of a pandemic where everything seems kind of dreary. That this is the time that large companies are looking to innovate and looking to make our world a better place. Finally, I think it kind of had to get to the point where it's going to blow up, but we're excited to be a part of that. And so Kevin will kind of overview the tech side.
Yeah. So tech-wise, we're currently working on 3 other variations with the grant funding. And we see some really great, clear paths forward with that. It's just getting it into, customers' hands who are excited about it. So in order to do that, one of the biggest challenges that I'm taking on right now is educating the market space, because we're seeing a lot of different industries, whether it's sporting goods or automotive or RV, whoever you are, you suffer from the same material property failures. And so trying to take these individual solos and educating them on this next generation material for today's use is definitely a huge undertaking. So we're a part of this thing called the Graphene Council, worldwide thing of graphene producers, and we're the first one that actually consumes graphene to make something else. And so we believe we've unlocked the key to making this material actually usable. And it's essentially, they boil it down to a triangle of scaling, education, and pricing, right? The performance is there, but can you scale it? We got that checked. The price, we're working on it because it's tied to scaling, but education, that's the biggest thing, because when you hear polymer additive, I mean, you just glass over.
Walk the other way.
Yeah, I mean, but it's destigmatizing these sort of advanced materials and get everybody thinking about what they're using, how they're consuming it, and how we can make it better.
Yeah.
Essentially, like how people care what go in their cleaners and foods now, what's going into your materials and how we can actually push that to go forward.
So Kevin, how do you educate in a time when we can't be face to face and go to conferences? How has this whole virtual thing working out?
So we've been very fortunate that we've worked really hard to make it easy to understand, whether it's a reading deck, presentation, or even our website. I've recently done the most millennial thing I've ever done, and I've started a blog. But I make it, so far I'm going over kind of like the history and usage of graphene and graphene oxide and what we can do to make it better. But I make it very approachable and funny. It's
pretty funny.
Right.
Like, so it's a good way to read it, to learn. I learn things sometimes.
It's on our website if you want to check it out.
But then we've also done some webinars too,
yes.
And that's been really helpful. I think the virtual world for materials and startups, because there's just so much more content, you can get out there so much more quickly. So we're participating in different conferences and participating in different global entrepreneurship challenges.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember when we were first talking about the Dipalo Ventures residency, which, by the way, is a sort of a 6-week program where we look at experience design and engineering design for more connected hardware startups that are early in product development. Wasn't a real fit for a polymer additive material science company. But the part that's interesting is experience design and messaging. So just doing something where it may be funny with something that's very complicated to understand, perhaps, is an idea. I mean, sometimes that works. There is a question that I'm gonna that is a good segue into this, and maybe for Larry and Paul to also jump in on. Given the discrepancy in pace between hard tech materials and software startups, how do you balance being transparent with your investors, or perhaps with anybody, without overwhelming your investors with challenges? So what advice do you have, Larry, for the founders, maybe in how they go about not overwhelming us with their challenges? What are there some silver linings or messaging?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I just say be really transparent. You know, over time, the founder and the board and the investors will develop a relationship, a communication relationship, just like in a marriage. And you learn to, you know, how you relate to others and how you work together. And but it's really important to be, I think Ray Dalio uses the word radically transparent. Investors can't really help if they find out about things too late. And it's important that whether you're on the board or even investors that aren't on the board, be kept apprised of what's happening with the company so that they can step in and offer resources. And any company that has raised outside capital like this probably has a lot more resources than they realize. Every investor involved probably has a contact or two that can help in some way, whether it is helping with that next round of financing, so bringing in other investors, and many of the investors in this company did bring in other investors, or whether it's making an introduction to a potential customer or a strategic partner or a potential supplier, or just someone who can provide good advice in an area like a legal issue or something of that sort. So, but everyone is busy with their own schedules. And if they aren't aware of areas of need that the company may have, they would not necessarily know to offer these things. So I'm a big believer in radical transparency, as they say. I don't worry about getting overloaded or too much information. If I have to, I can push back, but it's rarely the case. I think more companies suffer from entrepreneurs and CEOs being lonely and being afraid to ask for help rather than the opposite.
I would add that I don't know that there is a difference between a software or a hard tech company when it comes to being transparent, because the best founders are updating their stakeholders at a regular cadence. The ones where you don't hear from, that's where you have to worry about your investment. So again, you know, when I look at my angel portfolio or even the small but growing Dipalo Ventures portfolio, I mean, there's monthly updates, there's quarterly updates, there's specific asks, and it's at different levels of detail. You don't want to find this stuff out, you know, late, but it doesn't mean that you have to fire off challenges every, you know, week to people. Because
yeah, I wasn't sure I understood that aspect of the question. I didn't know, maybe it pertains to intellectual property. So hard tech companies do have trade secrets. They often have patents that are in process, so the information has not yet been disclosed. So there are areas like that where the company has to be very careful. of what they share and how they share and with whom they share it. And likewise in governance, there's usually some rules too. But outside of those types of things, I'd say, yeah, I don't see huge differences between hard tech and soft tech.
Hey, Paul, how have you advised or transitioned companies that are like MITO, which I would consider a small cap table, kind of close knit, early investors, and then, you know, some of us coming in where we're working with each other as they mature, like going back to what Larry just said, you know, some information doesn't need to go to everyone. What advice would you have there, or what are best practices?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the board is going to evolve as companies mature, as they raise more money, and it's not just up to the existing board and the management team. It's also going to be future investors having a say in how the board evolves and who's in the room. It's great to have advisors and board observers and people who are strategically aligned or well suited to be supportive, but at the same time, you can't. Eventually, it could be too many cooks in the kitchen, and kind of want to control some of the information flows there.
Yeah, for sure. I got a couple of, and we're sort of now winding down on time, so we're going to do this quickly. One question that came in: what's the biggest red flag for a deep tech endeavor? Is this any different from a material science endeavor? I don't know if I understand the deep tech versus material science necessarily. Deep tech sometimes can mean AI, etc. And we at Dipalo Ventures like the word hard tech. Anyone want to take that? If there's anything specific, Paul?
I guess one. Wow, there's so many. No, one specifically talking about hardware, deep tech, physical science. You know, like Larry was saying, innovations rooted in physical science and engineering. If all the intellectual property is held as trade secrets, that could be a red flag. Unwillingness to patent anything. So is it truly novel, or is there anything there at all?
Yeah.
I guess for me, the biggest red flag, and again, it depends on how you define deep tech. I lean more towards the hard science definition of it, but it is often used to define AI as well. But for me, for hard tech material type companies, the biggest red flag is when an entrepreneur doesn't seem to have a full appreciation of the amount of time it takes to get through the key milestones, that they've been too optimistic about how hard it is to sell, or how hard it is to produce, or how hard it is to go from benchtop to pilot to massive scale in manufacturing. And each of those steps comes with lots of challenges. There's almost always things that go wrong. And I just like to see that the entrepreneur has thought that through.
So that's probably a good.
Yeah, can I build on that?
Yeah, please.
Real quick. I mean, I totally agree, and it's like the licensing model syndrome that an inventor CEO has. That, you know, they have this incredible laboratory innovation patented every which way around the world, and since it's a licensing model, that all they're going to have to do is walk in to the office of, you know, the CTO of some big industrial company and say, sign this licensing agreement, and we're good to go. There's just so much more that goes into getting a new technology to market, even if it's a licensing model and you plan to let your partners handle a lot of that commercialization and scale up.
So Paul,
an advanced material, like I have this thing with advanced materials. I love advanced materials, but an incredible new material that has all these incredible properties is worth absolutely zero until it is effectively incorporated into some sort of system that creates value for someone. Mm-hmm. So that's, like Larry said, if there's not the appreciation for how challenging that process is, definitely a big red flag.
Awesome. Hey, so actually, it's the last question I would maybe leave you guys with, and Haley and Kevin, your last thoughts. How do you scale? When do you expect scale? And that was actually an audience question as well. In some way, when we're talking about scaling MITO, like what's next? What do the next 12 months look like for you guys?
I think that question could be taken two ways, right? So like scaling personnel or even scaling the tech. So
We have plans to do both.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
may not even be at scaling yet. You may still be proving product market fit.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
at MITO, because Kevin and I run different segments of the company, if you will, like Kevin's on the engineering side, I'm on the business side. I think we have this ability to run two things in tandem. So like, yeah, our tech team is focused on scaling the product. And we've done that, and we need to optimize that. And there's some operational efficiencies that need to be put in place to scale our initial flagship product. We've got some other things kind of in the pipeline of scaling those as well. And the tech team is focused there. Kevin rides the middle of business and tech, and he kind of works on that, but also works on product market fit with the business side. And for us, the real efficiency there is looking at all these different polymer materials, working with customers, getting involved with these customers to understand their value. And our team really has this way of like making the bandwidth in our brains and in our time to really understand the value proposition for these other people. And so, yeah, there is product market fit that needs to come and scale this year. That will help as we continue to scale our team and scale our understanding of the product, how it mechanizes in these different polymers and creates value in different markets. And then there will also be scaling of the material. And to do those two things in tandem, we're solving, multiple questions as we continue going. And I think learning at the same time is what makes MITO unique.
And for you guys, there's a lot of data, and the proof is in the data. And so, we looked at a large sample set of data, and there'll be more of that coming. Yeah. It's all about the data, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, even since then, we've had some customers come back that they're on their second, third, sometimes fourth round of testing because they like what they found and they want to do a little bit more robust testing and get a larger data set themselves. And some of those customers have actually come back, and instead of asking, oh, how much is it going to cost? They're like, how much can you actually provide? And so at that point, you
have to write both. You have to scale it, and then you have to figure out the value on the same time.
We're definitely at this point that we are working on scaling up, getting it to industry level quantities, which thankfully, since we're going at a 0.1% concentration, you don't need a whole lot, but it's still going from what we're making in our lab right now, which is roughly 200-gram batches, up to we're predicting 48,000 grams a month, sort of thing. So it's definitely pushing it to that level.
Yeah, that's music to my ears. 48,000 grams. Okay, so guys, it's noon, and I want to sort of end relatively on time. This has been fantastic. I'd love, we're trying to figure out how to add some value in the ecosystem. It would be lovely to hear from you guys after some period of time, and come back and see how you're doing and how you're tracking. And I know that Larry and I and Paul are going to have chats as we go along as well. So any last words? Otherwise we will see you. We'll see you two on Friday at some point. But yeah, any final words from anyone? Jump in.
Just super excited about the future of MITO, and to everyone watching, if you want to see them present at our annual event, Rafik, I hope you don't mind me putting in a plug. October 22nd is Co-Invest Clean Tech, a virtual event in the afternoon. MITO will be presenting along with several other startups and some great thought leadership keynote speakers. So free registration, go to our website at Clean Energy Trust and go ahead and get registered. Thanks so much, Rafik.
Paul, you can also put the URL into the chat thing here. Awesome. So we'll be participating in that as well. I'll leave last word with Haley, if you want.
Yeah, I would just say, to all the founders who are in hard tech, deep tech, whichever one you want to call it, really focus on building consistently. I mean, telling your story and getting results in any way that you can, whether it's IP, financials, product, scale, customers, they all are a part of your story. And without focusing on the story and filling in those chapters, MITO wouldn't have been able to raise. We definitely wouldn't have been able to raise our round if it weren't for these three guys right here who did the hard work and did the term sheet. And once we had the term sheet, it was a lot easier. But I mean, it was a long time that they spent doing due diligence, working with other investors, and bringing this round together. And so I think when you're a tech entrepreneur, a CEO, finding the right investors to work with you is just as important as your first customer. And that's what I told Rafiq. I mean, like you all were just as important as our first piloting customer this past year, allowing us to raise this round and really giving us the fuel to grow. And we thank you for that.
We appreciate you guys, as well, and for allowing us to be part of your journey. So it's a privilege that's two-directional, I think, or two-way. So with that said, thanks so much. Thank you, Larry, for jumping on as well, and Munir in the background for helping to run this Zoom call. We splurged and got a paid Zoom account for this, so maybe there'll be many more. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of the week, and we'll have it live on YouTube. We'll post it on our pages, and you guys can as well, so more people can have a look.
Bye, Mom.
Haley's mom, have a great rest of September. We'll have to meet in person again and celebrate. Yeah,
absolutely.
all right, take care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.